to all of our presenters who have joined this live Q&A session, as well as all the attendees who have logged on in the morning or early afternoon across Asia. I'll start by very quickly introducing our presenters who you have just watched on Events Air. I'll start by introducing Professor Guy Littlefair, the Pro Vice-Chancellor International at the Auckland University of Technology. Professor Littlefair presented today on a student-centred education through the lens of a contemporary University of Technology in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Kia ora, Guy.
Kia ora, Ben.
We are also joined by Professor Trevor Drage, who is the Associate Dean for Global Engagement and Partnerships at the University of Waikato. Professor Drage presented today and delivered a highly valuable summary of his university's rankings improvement program and the key lessons learned. Kia ora, Trevor.
Kia ora, Ben.
Next up, we have Dr. William Shannon, the Internationalisation Director at the University of Canterbury's Business School. Dr. Shannon presented on why universities must reinterpret internationalisation in a post-pandemic world. If you do want to better understand the meaningful connections that are required to genuinely drive internationalisation, then you can look no further than Dr. Shannon. Kia ora, Will.
Kia ora, Ben.
And last but not least, a warm welcome to Professor Indrawati Wee, the head of the Department of Food Science at the University of Otago. Professor Wee discussed the commercialisation of research using the examples of food science and technology at her university. Kia ora, Indra.
Kia ora, Ben.
Now, there's a fair bit to try and cover off in 15 minutes, so I will get straight into the questions. Professor Littlefair, I'll start with you. This first question, can you please share a bit more about your university's partnership with industry? Are graduates getting jobs thanks to these partnerships, and how are these partnerships developed?
Sure, that's a great question. So one of the hallmarks of AUT is our engagement with industry, and we have industry partners both here in New Zealand and overseas. So I can perhaps give you an example to answer the question. We've been developing a relationship, more of a strategic alliance probably, with a very large Indian corporate company, and they will be offering internships both here in New Zealand and also the opportunities right across the globe for internships. And if students are successful in those internships, then there's absolutely no reason why that won't turn into full-time employment. So that's typically the type of arrangements we have. Is it leading to employment? Absolutely it is. I'm very pleased to say that our employment rates post-graduation are one of the leading in New Zealand. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Guy. There's another question that's come through here for Indra, and it looks like it's come through from Thailand. What is the policy for visiting researchers of food science at the University of Otago?
So the policy from our university that you have to bound to certain organizations, whether it is coming from university or research center or even the food companies, that we sign agreement about the activities that you want to do with us and how you want to do the funding, especially to cover during your stay here. And basically that's all that we need, and how you can actually to show the university from your home university about the support that they will give to you, and also how you can match the activity that you do here with our expertise.
Thank you, Indra. Trevor, this one is for you. You've talked about the improvement program. There's a question here. What should universities do to start focusing on in order to improve their rankings? How can they make a good start, and how long does it take to start seeing improvements? There's a fair bit in there for you to try and...
That's a fantastic question. I mean, I think areas of focus will probably vary by university. So I think the key first point and the starting point for us was understanding our own performance, where we're performing well, areas that we could improve and what our opportunities are. So I think, as I said in the talk, it's kind of really reviewing your performance against those different metrics, depending on the ranking system, and try and get an understanding of where they are. The second part of the question was, can you remind me briefly?
How long does it usually take to start seeing some improvements? Again, that probably depends on the areas they're focusing on.
Yeah, it's actually a bit of a torturous process because you have a kind of annual round of rankings. So as we found this year, you put in a lot of work around this time in 2020, and we've only just seen the results coming through. So yeah, it's not a very fast iteration. You're kind of, playing around with things one year and waiting for the next year to see things come through. So yeah, frustratingly slow sometimes, I'd agree.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Will, over to you. You've talked a lot in the presentation around the meaningful connections that need to be developed between international and domestic students. There's a question here about the role of management and academics to drive those connections. Are you able to share a little bit more about their role and involvement?
Yeah, sure thing. So, I mean, in some ways, it's challenging because friendships and relationships are not things that academic staff or otherwise can manufacture. But I think there are fantastic opportunities to embed activities in the classroom, for example, that require and reward collaboration across nationalities. So group work, for example, but within that group work, identifying activities that require and reward collaboration. So, for example, the requirement to use sources in more than one language that immediately brings students with that linguistic ability and overseas experience into play as adding something to the team. So I think it requires deliberate design of academic activities, but certainly by doing so, we can help to form these relationships and at least get the ball rolling.
Thanks, Will. And one more for you, which is, given the uncertainties of global travel, so obviously reducing the inbound student mobility, how does this impact internationalisation initiatives for New Zealand's education sector, and obviously more specifically UC's business school?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I mean, in some ways it's counterintuitive because with borders currently largely being closed, it doesn't seem to be a good time to be pursuing this type of internationalization. But in fact, I think it's actually allowed us to step back and to think, well, how can we and keep going with internationalization without the ability to travel? And we still have great diversity on our campus, as would any other university in New Zealand. And within that, there's the opportunity to embed these activities that enable students to have experiences, meaningful experiences with people from other cultures without even leaving our shores. And in fact, that creates a more sustainable long-term option, because even in good times, it's always the kind of elite that, or not the elite, but a small minority of our students that are going overseas. So we need to think of ways to engage the majority of our students, and these activities on campus provide that forum. And of course, there are also virtual opportunities that we are increasingly exploring as well. And we live in communities that are really diverse and wanting to engage with the university. So also beyond the campus, but within our own communities, there are opportunities there.
Thank you, Will. A slight change of topic here. Coming back to you, Guy, there's a question here. How often is curriculum or study programs, how often are they adjusted to keep up with the future of work? And how much research and development is put into this effort by the university?
Great question. I'm going to answer it at two different levels. So from an academic perspective, obviously, they will be updating their curriculum as a work in progress. That's a constant refinement. In terms of the larger piece around new curriculum, new courses, or restructuring, as I talked about in my presentation, that's a much bigger piece of work.
We may have lost connection to Guy there. We'll move on to another question while we wait for that connection to come back. The one for you, Trevor, and apologise to Guy if he can still hear us, but Trevor, is a special task force needed for the ranking improvement exercise? And what is the best mix for this task force? And what support is required from management to get things moving?
Again. Thanks, Ben.
Oh, thank you, Guy.
Yeah, sure.
You,
if I come for an answer, yeah, I mean, I think given the exercise we undertook was so involved units across the whole university, we tended to kind of have different levels, so different tiers. So we worked really closely with our university executive. So I guess an advantage of the size of our university, you know, there's fortnightly meetings with your deputy vice chancellors and pro vice chancellors all in the same room, and the vice chancellor as well. So that gives an opportunity to provide the high level strategy that we're working on and get approval to move forward. The way we worked on it for specific rankings was put different, you know, specific working groups under those with, you know, small teams of, I guess, doers really, people who can get on and act and either collect the data you required or get on and start to change policy to improve your process. And yeah, management support, I think, was very critical for the process as well. Having your deputy vice chancellors on board to be able to say to units which sit under them, you know, this is an important process to the university, to get people in sort of communications, marketing, alumni office, all the way through to your research office and library, to actually take part in the rankings process and help improvement. So setting up the governance and process is very important.
Thanks, Trevor. There's just one, a great question that's come in, and I'll open it up to the floor for the last 1 minute, 30 seconds, but is there collaboration between all institutions together to help process, structure, and people, where all educational institutions have a platform? If not, why not, given the tech and innovation available today? If you do have any examples or any response to that, I can open that up across obviously our New Zealand universities. Would anyone? Indra, you go for it.
Yeah, so if I may answer, from the commercializations and research, we have a very strong collaborations among the university in New Zealand. So we have few research partners come to visit us, and we did last time collaborations with Canterbury University and Massey University, or some student is coming from AUT and also from Auckland University. So around research and also platform, in the commercializations, we have a strong collaborations around that one.
Great, thank you, Indra. There's another question around commercialization examples from Otago, but I think we have run out of time. There is another live Q&A session with this group a little bit later, so we'll try and cover off those remaining questions in the second session. But again, thanks to all of our presenters and to all the attendees who have logged in today. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you.
Thank you.